go. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. And before I dive into the Q&A, I just have to laugh about something because I just went to film this and I got my camera all set up. I turned it on, I started speaking, and not did it just die, but my camera had the notification that said camera exhausted. So I guess my Sony is like so exhausted from all this extra YouTube work I've been putting it through. Anyways, I let it charge for a little bit. I was so excited to do this that I didn't charge it all the way, so hopefully we can get through all these questions on this battery. So this is my first time doing a Q&A style video here on YouTube, but ever since I started posting about my upcoming PCT trip, I've been getting a lot of questions. And so I did a story about a week and a half ago asking you guys what you wanted to know. The story was on Instagram. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, go check it out. It's just my same name. And there were a lot of repeat questions, so I compiled them together, and then there were a lot of different ones. So I'm just gonna go through all of them on my phone today and just give you guys my answers. Just know that I haven't hiked the PCT yet. I've hiked little sections of it. I've done some backpacking myself, but nothing on this scale. So a lot of the answers for me are just kind of what I think or what I feel. I've read a ton of other people's stories, and so I feel like I'll probably pull in some of that information as well. But I'm super excited for the chance to actually do a Q&A after I've done it and look back on this one and see how many things have changed and like how many answers that I give where I'll like laugh at because it was just so untrue. So yeah, this is just where I'm at right now with my planning and my excitement. Okay. So the number one question that I got asked is how long is it and how long do I think it will take? Or some variation of that question. So the hike is 2,650 miles. It goes from the Mexican border, the Mexican-California border, all the way to the Canadian Washington border. So it goes through the whole state of California, and then the state of Oregon and the state of Washington. It really depends on how long it takes, on how fast you hike, how many days you take off the trail, those sort of things. I am hoping to do it in about 4 to 4.5 months. This would mean I'm averaging over 20 miles a day on the days that I'm hiking, and that's an average. When you're hiking for 4.5 months, there will be days where you hike 30-mile days, and there will be days that you hike 0-mile days. I mean, you gotta take some rest days in there. So that's kind of my hope right now. It'll be really interesting to see what actually ends up happening. There's so much out of your control, weather, and not just like current weather that's happening in the moment, but how this season went. So that's a kind of interesting thing to know, like, did it snow a lot this year? I mean, I don't know, we'll see. You know, is it really dry? That can mean there's lots of fires. So all those sort of things will impact my ability to hike the trail at a reasonable pace and, you know, whether I'll be able to even hike every single section. Question number 2, am I hiking northbound or southbound? Why? So I'm hiking northbound. That is how I would say most people do it, although there is kind of a rising movement for southbound hikers. But from my understanding, again, having not done the hike yet, my understanding is that hiking from south to north is a little bit easier logistically, just working with the season in that way, because you're hitting the desert when there's still water, and then you're moving up through the Sierras and all of this. So you're kind of working with the seasons, whereas if you go the other direction, you're gonna be hiking through the desert in the fall, and your water sources are gonna be fewer and further in between. You also have to start much later if you start hiking southbound because you're starting at such high elevations. So my understanding is that hiking northbound to southbound is just more technical of a hike, and I have never done a hike of this caliber or anything of this caliber. I am sticking with south to north. This is a random one. Okay, so someone wanted to know what settings do I use on my GoPro, and I get asked this actually all the time. So I did make a YouTube video about this probably a couple months ago now. I haven't been super consistent on here on YouTube until now. I am being consistent. So if you want to see that, I'll just put a link below in the bio so you can go check out that video. And just know that I am now using the GoPro 8. It was when I was using the GoPro 7, but honestly, I use the same settings and the same like filming technique, and that's likely the camera I'm going to bring on the trail. I just plan on bringing my GoPro, and I plan on bringing a cell phone because I don't want to carry the extra weight of a real camera. Does your start date have an impact on your training for the PCT? And how much conditioning do people normally do before starting? Yeah, so I would say totally, because if you start really late in the season, you know, if you guys watched my video about getting my app date, you saw that I got a date towards the end of May when I was hoping for something much earlier in the month or even at the end of April. So the window for hiking is kind of short. You know, you just have this summer season, and if you start too early, obviously you're having to deal with a lot of snow in the high mountains, but if you start too late, you have to worry about putting in more miles because you want to finish the trail before snow starts falling in the upper Washington area of the trail. And you never really know, like sometimes it doesn't, like the snow holds out until October, but a lot of times like this year, it was snowing in the middle end of September. So in a perfect world, I'd love to be done with the trail by September 15th. If I end up with my current start date, then I will have to really put in some serious miles to do that. And in order to be able to put in those miles from the beginning, it means I'm gonna have to train that much harder. I would say that there's not like an average condition that people start. I've read a ton of people's stories from hiking, and some people literally do nothing and they just get fit on the trail. They start slow and they build up miles as they go. And some people start really strong. I read a story about a girl who set the speed record on the PCT. She did the whole PCT in 60 days. And so she had done some serious conditioning. And so I'd say really anything in between, it kind of just depends on the person. Okay, so then there was a few questions about gear, which I feel like as I start actually like really nailing down my gear, I'll talk more about this. But I just want to make sure that all of you guys get your questions answered, so I will answer them. Someone asked, what kind of shoes will you wear? And ironically, I think a lot of people think that you would wear like nice hiking boots, but the problem with really nice hiking boots, excuse me, is they tend not to breathe well. And so it can be like really hard on your feet. You can end up with like some serious swamp feet. So most PCT hikers actually hike with trail runners, like lighter mesh trail runners. And they do that because one, they're lighter, and two, they dry really quickly. So if your feet are really sweaty or if you have to do a stream crossing, you're not ending up with like swamp trench type feet. So I plan on having some type of trail runner. I will have to replace them probably a couple of times throughout the trail because you run down the tread on the bottom when you're hiking that many miles. I don't know the exact brand. I'm trying out different shoes right now to see which ones I like best. So I'll keep you posted. The other gear question is, do you think a 51-liter backpack will do for the trip? Okay, so 51 liters would definitely be enough space. That's a pretty big backpack. But the issue tends to be whatever size bag you have, you tend to fill it. And the bigger your bag is and the more you fill it, the heavier it is. So I actually plan with probably going with a smaller backpack than that. I'm not 100% sure, somewhere maybe like 30 to 40 liters, so that I'm not tempted to overfill it. I don't think I'll be like the most ultralight person out there on the trail since I am vlogging it and I really care about eating well just because I've had so many problems with my health. But with that being said, I definitely want to be mindful of the amount of weight that I'm carrying because every single like pound on your back for each mile is like that much more work that you're putting in. So 51 liters would definitely be a big enough backpack, but I honestly think maybe too big because I think it would end up being really heavy. The next question was, do you spend any time off the trail or how do you get food when you run out? And a similar question, how do you plan to restock or resupply? Okay, so it just depends on the person. Yes, you do get off the trail to go restock and resupply so that you can get food. You would do this every 3 to 9 days, depending on your preference, depending on how much weight you want to carry, and also depending on what section of the trail you're on. Some sections of the trail are more remote than others, and so you would have more time in between towns where you can resupply. Every time you get off the trail, you add miles. A lot of people hitchhike those miles, but it is something to consider. So the less you get off the trail, the less extra miles you're adding to your trip, but also the more food you have to carry on your back. Some people do not ship themselves resupplies. They just go into town and they resupply on whatever they can find, because a lot of, you know, places will have kind of grocery stores where you can get maybe not the most healthful things, but you can get things that are high calorie, that are easy to backpack with. I know that for me personally, because I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, I'm really mindful of what I put into my body and all the struggles I've had with my skin. So I'm really navigating on how I can continue to be really healthy on the trail, which will likely mean that I have to mail myself a lot more food than other people who didn't have so many dietary requirements. I will probably have multiple videos going over this because I know that this is something that I tend to get a lot of questions about. But yes, you do get off the trail every few days and resupply and, you know, shower and maybe sleep in a real bed here and there. Okay, this is an interesting one. If you are a guy and you're uncomfortable with periods, just like skip forward a couple minutes, because the question is, what is your plan for your period? I have actually heard a lot of women don't get their period out on the trail because it is so hard on your body. I hope that's not the case for me, because I have had a lot of challenges getting my hormones to actually be balanced. I mean, that was what was happening with my skin all these years. So I hope that I have it. And I know a lot of people use reusable methods, like I've heard of people using menstrual sponges or menstrual cups. I like using a menstrual cup in regular life, but I don't know about like being super dirty and having to deal with that. Part of me thinks just having organic tampons and just like packing them out would be an easier method. So that's what I'm assuming I'll do. I will keep you posted on that. The next question is, do you need to be a very experienced hiker or fit hiker to hike the PCT? I think this kind of goes along with what I said earlier. No, you could start, I mean, some people start in the beginning of March and they take 6+ months to do the hike, so they're not having to hike super fast, and it allows them to get fit on the trail. I would say, from my understanding of what I've read, that more important than your physical strength is your mental strength. You can get strong over the course of hiking for a continued amount of time, but if you don't have the mental strength to stick with it when times get tough, then that will be the thing that that knocks you off the trail way before any sort of physical thing gets in the way. The only thing physical that might stop you is injuries. A lot of people get overuse injuries like sprains and strains and microfractures and things like that. So if you haven't done any training or conditioning and you go really hard, really fast, you might end up with one of those overuse injuries, and that can be a full season ender. So I would say yes and no. Okay. We're getting down to the last couple of questions. Someone wanted to know, how well am I going to document it? Well, since I've never done it, I don't really know the experience. My plan is to document it really well. I plan on vlogging everything and still getting out weekly vlogs. I will, however, find someone else to edit the vlogs for me. So I will just be getting all the content and sending it to someone who I trust, so that you guys can stay in the loop the whole time. So I do plan on being active for the whole trail, but getting a little bit of help, because I want to be able to be really present, and I don't want to take, you know, a couple of hours every time I'm in a town to work on editing. I really want to allow myself to be in this experience. And for me, filming does not take me out of the experience, or speaking to a camera. However, like taking hours and hours of editing does feel like it will. So my plan is to document it really well, but to get a little help in the process. The next question is your boyfriend hiking with you, or who are you hiking with? My boyfriend wants to hike some of the sections with me. He's kind of still deciding what that will look like. We got him a permit for now, but when they come up with the next round, he'll decide whether he's gonna release that permit back into the system for somebody else and just get some little day hike permits, or, you know, like shorter time permits, or if he wants to commit to the full thing. It's not his dream, and he is so amazingly supportive. But this is a big dream of mine, and so I'm excited regardless. I know that even if I hit the trail alone, I will meet some really awesome people out there, and yeah, I'm just excited for whatever has to come. So realistically, I'll probably be starting alone, but I plan on like meeting people and having so much fun and making friends. So whether I start with him or not, and whether I start solo or not, I think that I will most likely not end up hiking all of it alone. Okay, this was the most asked question, and I don't blame you guys because my dog is really freaking cute. But the most common question was, is Tabor coming with me? Or what am I doing with my animals on the trail? Or basically, can dogs be on the trail? Okay, so at first, you know, Tabor is she is a runner. She loves to put down the mile. She is a super active dog. And so I started in the beginning doing a bunch of research about what it would be like to bring her. And logistically, you can bring a dog for a lot of sections of the trail. I'd say like almost 80% of the hike you can do, maybe not quite that much, but regardless, you can bring her for a lot. However, you would have to have someone come pick her up anytime you go through a national park. So that would require a lot of external help. And I also read a lot of people's kind of blogs and journal entries about how hard it is on the animals. And, you know, it's one thing to put my body through that because I'm making that conscious decision, but you know, she's a young dog and I plan on hopefully having her in my life for as many years as possible. Like, Tabor, please live to be 20 years old or more. That would be great. Thank you. So I don't want to put her through it. It's been a really hard decision to make. Luckily for me, like I said earlier, my boyfriend is likely not going to do the whole hike with me, so he'll take her for most of it and take care of our cat. We also have my mom and Sam's parents who are super, super helpful. So, and they love watching her because she's such a good dog. So they'll take care of her. I know that that's hard for people who don't have that kind of support. I waited a really long time to get a dog until I knew that either I could do all the work or I had enough support that she was taken care of, because I do tend to travel and, you know, do crazy things all the time. So I feel very, very lucky in that way. But yeah, it was a really, really tough call to make. And I think, you know, one of the hardest things about doing this hike will actually be being away from her, being away from my family, being away from my boyfriend. I think that will be one of the hardest things. Okay, so lastly, I just want to address a few questions that came up. I think that some people were assuming I've already done the PCT because I got asked, how did I prepare for a 3+ month hike? How many days did I spend on the PCT? What was my favorite section? And as you know, for a newbie, what sections do I recommend? I have only hiked maybe 20 miles of the PCT. I did a backpacking trip last summer, and I used to live near the PCT when I was in college, so I did a little section. So I don't know yet. I don't have any experience. I'm in the process. You guys will get to be here for all of the planning, so you'll see how I plan. Something I do want to do though is when I was hiking the PCT last summer, I met a couple of PCT hikers hiking the opposite direction, and I've stayed in contact with them. I followed their whole journey, and I've already reached out to them to see if they would be interested in being interviewed. And so I want to bring them in, and so we can, myself, but also all of you guys, ask somebody who's already done it, someone who just finished this year, the questions that we're dying to ask. Because like I said, all of my information is from like what I think is gonna happen, and they already have the experience of hiking the whole thing. So please help me out by commenting down below all the questions you have for somebody who's already done the hike. And if you have any more follow-up questions for me, please shoot those down below in the comment section as well, because I will continue to address them in further videos. Any questions you have, I will end up, you know, just sharing here on the end of these videos so that you guys get all your questions answered. But yeah, I really wanna have some great questions to bring to these friends, so put them down below. And as always, if you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, because it really helps me out as I get started. And I'd love, love, love for you guys to be a part of this whole adventure. So a couple months out from actually hiking, but some really big things on the horizon. And I'm more excited than ever to be here sharing with you guys. Talk soon.